Hello everybody, welcome back to Succinct Psychology. My name is Prescott, and today we are going to start Chapter 8, Memory, from the OpenStax Psychology 2E online textbook. So let's get started with what is memory. So memory is the study of memory, looks at some of the following questions. How do we process and store information? Are there different types of memory? How do we retrieve memories, and why do we forget? Why do we forget things? So photographs can trigger our memories and bring back past experiences back to life. So here you have, a bunch of photographs that somebody took, and if they looked at them, probably be like, oh wow, I remember this. It triggers your memory. So, how memory functions. Memory is an information processing system like a computer. It is a set of processes used to encode, store, and retrieve information over different periods of time. So, encoding involves the input of information into the memory system. Storage is the retention of the encoded information, and retrieval is getting the information out of memory and back into awareness. So, our first step, encoding, is when the brain receives information from the environment, it labels/codes it, organizes it with other similar information, and connects new concepts to existing concepts. So encoding occurs through two types of processing. Automatic processing, or encoding of details like time, space, frequency, and the meaning of words, and it is usually done without conscious awareness. So for example, remembering when you last studied. Now, effortful processing is encoding of details that takes time and effort. So that would be what you last studied or learning new skills. So when you first learn new skills, such as driving a car, you have to put forth effort and attention to encode that information about driving. Now, once you know how to drive, you can encode additional information about the skill automatically without having to really try. Now, there are some types of encoding. We have semantic encoding, which is encoding of words and their meanings. Is the most effective form of encoding. Attaching meaning to information makes it easier to recall later. Now, and it involves a deeper level of processing. Now, visual encoding is the encoding of images, which are words that create a mental image, such as car, dog, and book, concrete words, and are easier to recall than words such as level, truth, and value, or abstract words. We talked about concrete versus abstract in the last chapter. So acoustic encoding is the encoding of sounds. Now, a self-reference event is a tendency for an individual to have better memory for information that relates to oneself in comparison to material that has less personal relevance. Now, storage, the Delhi and Hitch model. So the Delhi and Hitch proposed a model of storage where short-term memory has different forms depending on the type of information received. So storing memories is like opening different files on a computer and adding in information. So we have three short-term systems: a spatial sketchpad, episodic buffer, and a phonological loop. So according to the model, a central executive supervises the flow of information between the systems. So here you have your central executive, there's a visuospatial sketchpad, episodic buffer, and phonological loop, and they all lead into long-term memory. So central executive here is what supervises this flow of information. So storage, the AS model, or A through S. So storage is the creation of a permanent record of information. Now the Atkinson-Schriffen model of memory is that information passes through these three distinct stages in order for it to be stored in long-term memory. So it's based on the belief that memories are processed the same way that a computer processes information. So you have sensory input, which leads to sensory memory. Information not transferred is lost. Then you have sensory memory goes to short-term memory, and that goes to long-term memory, and long-term memory can go back into short-term memory. Short-term memory is rehearsal, so information not transferred is also lost. So, sensory memory is storage of brief sensory events, such as sights, sounds, and tastes. It is stored for up to a couple of seconds, and the first step of processing stimuli from the environment. If the information is not important, it is discarded, and if the information is valuable, then it moves into our short-term memory. So here we have the STROOP effect. That's a funny word. The STROOP effect was discovered while studying sensory memory and describes why it is difficult for us to name a color when the word and the color of the word are different. So here, why is it? So, this Stroop effect, nice example here. So, you have the word red, but it's in the color blue, or the word green was in the color blue. Yellow, but it's in the color purple. It's hard for you to process that. So, short-term memory, or STM, is a temporary storage system that processes incoming sensory memory. It lasts about 20 seconds, and capacity is usually about 7 items, plus or minus 2. This was discovered by George Miller. So, short-term memories are either discarded or stored in long-term memory. Now, memory consolidation is the transfer of short-term memory to long-term memory, and one way memory consolidation can be achieved is through rehearsal. Now, rehearsal is the conscious repetition of information to be remembered. So you need to rehearse. Now, long-term memory is the continuous storage of information. It has no limit and is like the information you store on a hard drive of a computer. There are two components of long-term memory, explicit and implicit. Now, explicit, here you have a nice chart. So you have long-term memory, which splits into explicit, or declarative memory, and implicit, or non-declarative. Now, explicit is episodic, or experienced events, and semantic knowledge, or semantic, knowledge and concepts. Now, implicit is procedural skills and actions, and emotional conditioning. So those are differences between explicit and implicit. Continuing with that, we have explicit memory. So explicit memory, or declarative memory, is memories of facts and events we can consciously remember and recall/declare. Now, explicit memories include two types. Semantic, which is knowledge about words, concepts, and language, so like knowing who the president is. And then you have episodic, so information about events we have personally experienced. So, for example, remembering your 5th birthday party, the what, where, when of an event, also called autobiographical memory. And a small number of people, including actress Mary Lou Henner, have a highly superior autobiographical memory known as hyperthymesia. So next we have implicit memories. So implicit memory is a memory or memories that are not part of our consciousness, and they are formed through behaviors. And then procedural, it stores information about how to do things, so skills and actions. So for example, how to ride a bike, tie your shoelaces, drive. Now, implicit memory also includes behaviors learned through emotional conditioning. So you might have a fear of spiders, but not consciously remember why or what occurred to condition that fear. I know a lot of people are really scared of spiders. Next, we have retrieval. How do you get information back out of storage? So, retrieval is the act of getting information out of memory storage and back into conscious awareness. So, retrieval is needed for everyday functioning, for example, knowing how to drive to work or how to perform your job once you get there. There are 3 ways to retrieve information. Recall, which is being able to access information without cues, so used for an essay test. Recognition is being able to identify information that you have previously learned after encountering it again. So it's used for a multiple choice test. And then you have relearning, so learning information that you previously learned. So after learning Spanish in high school, you might forget how to speak it if you do not use it. However, if you try to relearn it, you will learn it quicker than the first time. That's actually exactly what happened to me. I took some Spanish in high school and middle school. I learned a bit, stopped taking it after my freshman year of high school, and then I got to college, and I forgot a lot of it, but it was easier for me to remember, to learn, than it was the first time in high school. So, parts of the brain involved in memory. So Carl Lashley and engrams. Carl Lashley was looking for evidence of an engram, the group of neurons that serve as the physical representation of memory. He studied parts of the brain involved in memory by making lesions in the brains of animals such as rats and monkeys. And he trained the rats to learn their way around a maze and then made lesions to try to remove the memory. Lashley was unable to find evidence of an engram. The rats were still able to remember their way around the maze, so he formulated a new hypothesis, which was the equipotentiality hypothesis. It's a mouthful. If part of one area of the brain involved in memory is damaged, another part of the same area can take over that memory function, which would explain why even though he made lesions in the rats' brains, they were still able to find their way around the maze. Eric Kandel studied the synapse and its role in controlling the flow of information through neural circuits needed to store memories. So here we have parts of the brain involved in memory. So scientists have now identified different parts of the brain involved in memory. So you have the prefrontal cortex, the amygdala, the hippocampus, and the cerebellum. These are all involved in memory. So going further into detail about that, well, I think that's a good stop stopping point for today's video, but we will continue from right here, parts of the brain involved in memory, in the next part. So again, my name is Prescott. I'm here at PsychSync, the Sync Psychology, and yeah, hope you guys have a great day and hope to see you in the next video. Take care.